Hello, and welcome to Buying Legal Counsel Virtual Learning Program. My name is Pamela Cone. I'm the founder and CEO of Amity Advisory, a consultancy working with professional service firms around social impact and sustainability. Today, our topic is social impact and sustainability, and I am so pleased to have with us Oliver Dudok van Heel, Head of Client Sustainability and Environment at Freshfields. Welcome, Oliver.
Thank you, Pam. Great to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you with us today because I think Freshfields is one of the leaders in the legal industry when it comes to social impact and sustainability. So hopefully we can use the next 30 minutes for you to share with us some of the things that Freshfields is doing as an example to what perhaps others in the legal industry should be considering. So let's start with having you describe, what does responsible business mean at Freshfields?
Well, it's a number of different things. It relates to, and we talk about it in three different categories. We talk about it on the one hand in relation to how we act as a business ourselves. So our own behavior, whether it's our behavior, our ethical behavior, our behavior in terms of diversity and our behavior in terms of the environment, and generally how we portray ourselves and how we behave as a firm. So that's one angle. The second angle is how we have a positive impact on society. And that's predominantly through the pro bono work that we do. So the legal advice that we provide for free to typically charities, but also individuals in particular need. And also through our community investment work, which is predominantly employees volunteering, giving their time to support local or global community projects. And the third part of our responsible business approach is our client engagement. So this is how we use our expertise, our skills, and our knowledge to talk to clients about sustainability, but also to help them make the transition towards a sustainable future. And I understand you'll be talking about that particularly with my colleague, Tim Wilkins.
Yes, we're going to also do a podcast with Tim, which I'm really excited about. How long has the firm been active in this area? How has the program grown?
Yeah, I mean, the truth is quite a long time. Our very first pro bono project was probably somewhere in the 1950s. So we've been thinking about these things for a long time. And to be fair, as a law firm that's been around for 275 years, you're always very conscious of your impact, not just on what's happening today and how you're generating revenue, etc., but you are also very conscious of your impact on the next generation of lawyer that comes into Freshfields. So there's always has been that awareness of a sense that we are here not just to run the firm in a particular way right now, but to leave the firm in a better place to the next generation. So that's a part of the ethos and always has been. But as I said, our first pro bono project was in the 1950s. We've had a commitment to the environment and reported on environmental impact since 2000. We've had diversity programs for pretty much that same time, and we've been active on community investment for many years. So it's been something that's grown, quite gradually over the years. But I think from, I would say, 2005 onwards, it's been quite a strong growth, and we've got a big program in place since then, and still growing.
And what do you think motivated that increased focus starting in 2005? Tell me about stakeholder motivation, or is it coming from inside?
Well, I think it's a lot of it is driven by lawyers themselves. I mean, people who think about the law, there is for many of them, they have kind of an ingrained appetite for justice. And that can manifest itself in different ways. Now, when you're a corporate lawyer, you may not always, you may not always be able to enact that through your client work because you're working for large corporations. You're not working typically for, a homeless community or a disadvantaged community, etc. So if you have the opportunity, therefore, to express that craving for justice in other ways than through the day-to-day of the job, then that, of course, is quite appealing. And so we have a lot of people who are very keen to do this. I mean, in a previous role, I was head of our community investment program, and the amount of people that were very keen to give up their time, and these are incredibly busy people, to make use of their skills and have a positive impact is tremendous, and that's only growing. The new generation of people coming into the firm are even more aware. They're asking now, not just, what can I do as part of our volunteer activities, but they want to understand how they as lawyers can actually have a positive contribution as well. And it's very much comes from within. At the same time, external events will trigger things. So if we have, a big global crisis, if there is a humanitarian or natural disaster taking place somewhere, we'll get lots of questions from people within the firm saying, what can we do to support this? What can we do to help? And currently with COVID, we've got a COVID disaster relief fund where the firm provides match giving to any employee who wants to donate to a range of different COVID-related charities. So it's definitely something that sits very strongly within our people.
So you mentioned earlier that much of the work Freshfields does is for large corporations, and that might not necessarily be fueling the I want to give back and access to justice ethos of practicing lawyers. To what extent does the firm consider the social impact of its actual client work, not just pro bono, but the actual work you're doing for client and the social impact of that work?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a question that we get asked a lot. We think of ourselves as a responsible business, and we talk about it publicly, and we talk about it internally as well. And one of the questions that often arises is, so if you're doing this, why? How can you, for instance, say you're a responsible business and yet work for a weapons manufacturer, to take an example, or a tobacco company, or you name.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer to that is twofold, really. On the one hand, there is an inherent part of the judicial system that says that everyone has a right to representation. So in the same way that a death row inmate has a right to representation, large corporate clients who other people might not always agree with, the business they're in, have a right to representation. So there is that aspect to it. But the other side of it as well is that we are our clients' trusted advisors. I come from a consulting background, and one of the things that struck me is that where in consulting you typically have, if you're doing well, you've maybe got a 3-year continuous relationship with a client if you're doing well.
Mm-hmm.
At Freshfields, we have clients that have been with us for decades. The Bank of England has been well, in fact, Freshfields started as the in-house lawyers of the Bank of England, and that's been going for 275 years. So in that respect, we have a very special role in terms of being trusted advisors and guardians of the long-term well-being of our clients. And in so doing, what we do when we let's say, a hypothetical case where a client might have been taken to court because of human rights breaches in its supply chain. Now, there may or may not be a case, but the thing that we would do as part of that is, whilst we defend them in court and ensure that there is a just agreement that comes out of it, we're also working with them to understand if anything did go wrong, what was the reason for it, and how can we put in systems in place to make sure that things don't go wrong in the future. So that may be, for instance, a renegotiation of a particular supplier agreement, or putting down a different procurement guidelines, etc. So in that way, you are working with those companies, but instead of just saying, we'll take your money and that's the end of our relationship, we're saying, well, we work for you, but in order to ensure that you as a business has, is sustainable in the terminology of last for the long time, then we want to help you ensure that what you do has that sustainability inherent within it, and therefore we provide continuous value to our clients in trying to do that.
I love that multiple usage or multiple inferences of the word sustainability, because that's the way I also use it. I don't think of it as only environmental impact and being a sustainable business in that respect, but being a sustainable business, long-term viability and health is also part of the sustainability mission. So I love that you used that term in more than the traditional way.
Yeah, and the other side of this, of how we work with clients, is also to do with the strength of our respective skill set and networks. So let's now go back to areas that are probably more around social and environmental impact. We can do certain things when we apply ourselves to having a positive social impact. Our clients can do certain things when they apply themselves to having positive social impact. Together, we can do a lot more applying ourselves to have a positive social impact. And an example I'd like to mention in that is the work that we've been doing in New York City. So for the last year and a half, we've been leading an initiative called the New York Circular City Initiative, where we brought together key stakeholders within the City of New York. So that includes the Mayor's Office, EDC in New York. It includes large corporations like Unilever. It includes banks like Goldman Sachs and HSBC, and many others to say, and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, who's a big player in the circular economy, to help the city make the transition towards the circular economy. And that's been a project that is only, so we were due to launch this in March. We've now decided to postpone it and rewrite the report that we'd written with a view to integrating the learnings from the COVID crisis. But that's a typical example of a project where through the joint efforts, skill sets, networks, expertise of all these different people, over 20 different significant organizations, we are able to have a much greater impact than if we alone or any of the other organizations alone try to do it. And I think that's a real strength of some of the work that we do, is when we are able to align and partner with other organizations who want to have that same impact, you get some fantastic outcomes.
Yeah, I think collaboration is the key. None of us is going to solve these global pressing problems by ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
And your example is a great example. Can you share with us whether that is a pro bono project or a paying project or some of each?
No, this is entirely pro bono. So everyone who's been involved in this has donated their time.
Excellent. You mentioned earlier procurement. I would be curious to hear from you what kind of attention Freshfields is seeing from prospects and clients through their procurement process. In other words, social impact auditing, sustainability auditing, climate disclosure project. Are you seeing that from clients yet? Yeah,
we're seeing it in a number of different ways. So I mean, the environmental side of things was always something that potential clients were interested in. It historically was a bit of a tick box exercise. So someone in the client's procurement team said, "Oh, can you make sure that these clients do these things or agree to these statements?" And pretty much all the time we would be able to, and we would, and that would be the end of it. What you're seeing now is, I think, a greater sophistication around this. So we're being asked, you mentioned the Carbon Disclosure Project, we're being asked to produce a CDP report every year, specifically for, we do it anyway because it's part of our environmental approach, but there are specific clients who insist on having that in order to work with them. Similarly, another big topic here is diversity and inclusion. So you're seeing a number of clients saying, because firms like ours, large city firms, whether it's in Europe or in the US, are typically white male dominated, or historically have been. And clearly that is not very diverse. And it's not just not diverse from a gender and ethnic perspective, it's also not diverse from an ideas perspective, because you're very much limiting the thinking to thinking that is already exhibited by that group that is part of the core of the firm. So by increasing the diversity and inclusion of our own business, we're not only making ourselves more diverse, we're attracting a greater pool of talent, a greater skill set, but we are also, it's very clear that our clients feel the same about this. We've had clients say to us, if you can't put forward a diverse team to work on this project, we're going to cut your fees by X%, which is very interesting, and that of course got people thinking. That was immediately people went, okay, we better make sure we have a diverse team, and we better make sure that we are able to answer these types of questions in the future in the best possible way. So, challenges for us as a firm are around gender diversity. We currently, not across the firm, but in the partnership. So
Mm-hmm.
when new lawyers come on board as trainees, you typically see slightly more women than men, very slightly, 1-2 percentage points. When we get to partners, we are currently on 16% of the partnership are women. Now, there are a whole host of reasons for that. And one of the main reasons and when it's actually changed quite a bit since I joined, which was 5 years ago, it's gone from 12% to 16%.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not easy, because if you think of the partnership electing probably 20 new partners each year, you've got to have, in order to move that dial up towards more gender diversity, you've got to have a significant proportion of those 20 being women.
Yes.
And so we're doing a lot of work into ensuring that women feel entirely supported in other responsibilities, as well as ensuring that men are able to play other roles in their lives and still be a successful lawyer. So it's building a lot of that stuff into how we think, into how we promote people. I think has changed significantly over the last few years, and it's become now. I was speaking to a partner the other day who had made partner the day she went on maternity leave. So there was no question that going on maternity leave was in any way going to say, well, we'll postpone it until you come back. No, none of that at
Right.
all. She went on maternity leave and made partner on the same day, and that, I think, shows a big change to the attitude. And similarly, when it comes to ethnic diversity, we are seeing still at the more junior levels a significant change in that. And part of that is a two-way street. You're seeing young people from diverse backgrounds, diverse ethnic backgrounds, coming to a firm like Freshfields. And because Freshfields is such an old institution and has such a particular type of network, they quite quickly ask themselves to what extent they really belong. I've never been to a private school. Can I really have a conversation? Can I share a joke about school with someone who's been to Eton when I've been to an inner city comprehensive?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and so those are things that we need to work very hard for us to, as incumbents at Freshfields, to be very inclusive in what we do. But we also need to work with the people who want to join the firm to make sure that they feel completely supported and have the confidence that makes them believe that Freshfields would be at a loss if they weren't there. One of the programs that I might mention in that is our Freshfields Stephen Lawrence program. So this is a program that was named after a young Black man who was studying a degree in architecture, was very promising, and was unfortunately murdered by racists in the late 1990s. And his mother set up a foundation in his name. And we've been working with them to bring into the legal industry young Black men. Young Black men are severely underrepresented in the legal industry, more so than young Black women. And so we provided scholarships for many of them. We provide training. It's a huge program that really makes a fundamental difference, not just to those young people who go through the program, and who, as a result of that, get a much, an exposure to Freshfields that they otherwise never would. But it also makes a difference to us within the firm, because we meet these young people as they come along, as they apply to join the program, etc., and have a completely different understanding of some of the challenges that they have had to overcome to be in the situation that they're in, and a greater awareness of those challenges, and how those are both something that we can learn from and something that we need to take into account. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff happening that ensures that we are able to bridge a lot of the diversity gaps that we've got.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You mentioned a couple of times the programs you have in place and the statistics regarding your incoming classes, gender diversity, and so forth. What kind of interest, or I should say, what level of interest do you see the incoming classes having on the whole responsible business spectrum, from community investment to environmental impact, et cetera?
Very significant. A lot of them actually drive a lot of this. They are, they have grown up with a much greater awareness of the challenges that the world is facing. And whilst they, you know, they want to pursue a corporate career, that doesn't mean that they forget about those things. And so they are driving these things. They are, you know, taking part in many of the projects that we put forward. They suggest their own projects. They will, you know, promote a lot of our. They take part in networks. So we have, for instance, a women's network. We have a Black Affinity network. We have a LGBT network, and all of those networks are supported not just by people from those communities, but by everyone within the firm. And people really want to be able to take part and drive that. And the other thing is that in terms of our core work, there's also an appetite. You know, just a good example is we recently launched a sustainability and human rights blog, which builds on a blog that we had that was purely focused on human rights, and that was launched about 3 months ago, I would say. And we have had weekly, literally at least 2 new articles, in addition to the ones, because Tim and I contribute regularly, but in addition to the ones that we do, at least 2 new articles coming from different parts of the firm saying, we'd like to write a blog about this topic on sustainability. Can we do it? So if you go to sustainability.freshfields.com, you'll see all the blogs that have been added in the last 2 months, and it's just phenomenal. And that really shows that they are thinking about these issues in a way that potentially is different to what they would have done 10 years ago. There's a much greater awareness of the importance of understanding these issues and bringing some of this awareness into their job in a way that is relevant to clients and adds value.
I think that is so promising, and unfortunately, the coming generations are going to have to fix a lot of what more senior generations have not paid attention to. So the energy and the enthusiasm that's coming from the classes that are coming into the professions now is so encouraging and so exciting.
Absolutely.
You gave us one example of some great work you're doing in New York City around the Circular Economy Initiative. Can you share with us how you're working with clients on social impact and sustainability? One more example?
Sure. So one of the things that we do is we've got a team that's very good on kind of social and green financing. It's quite an extensive team. We've got people all over the world who do this work, and that ranges from green bonds to the financing of significant large project finance initiatives. So think of, you know, a renewable energy farm, a solar farm, a hydroelectric dam. All of those projects require, you know, quite intricate social and environmental due diligence. So we're able to, you know, we provide that as part of the legal advice that we give. We do also do a lot in terms of social impact bonds. So those are the type of bonds where the interest rate that you would be paying is varies based on your ability to deliver a certain social impact. So there are a lot of different things that are happening, and the finance community is changing significantly and very rapidly over the last 3-4 years, coming up with new innovative solutions, coming up with a lot of different ways to ensure that finance acts for good. And this is not coming from your typical, you know, ethical investors. This is coming from the likes of Larry Fink,
Yes.
CEO of BlackRock. This is coming from Mark Carney, former chair of the Bank of England, and their ilk. You know, a real sense that finance can be a force for good. And of course, finance is a very big part of the work that we do. So a lot of fantastic work going on in that space as well to help effectively finance the transition towards a more sustainable economy.
And that actually brings me to my final question with respect to that, because as you and I have discussed before, many people are seeing this pandemic situation as an opportunity to build back better. And in fact, there's even a trending hashtag about build back better.
Absolutely.
So how do you think the pandemic has affected your work, and how will our work change post-pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very big question because there are many different variations to that. I mean, I'll start with, you know, how it's affected our work physically. So of course, we're all working from home now. And we're not traveling to meet clients and all of those things. And the reality is, and I wrote a blog about this, you know, a lot of these behaviors are going to stick. because it's not just the last 2 or 3 months where we slowly get used to this and are surprised by how well it works and all that. But these behaviors are going to continue in some form or another until we have a vaccine and until, effectively social distancing is no longer required. And that we're talking, at the very best scenario this fall, more likely next winter or spring. So that will give people almost a year of embedding these behaviors. And I'm already having conversations internally with people saying, I don't see why I would need to be in the office 5 days a week. I've been incredibly productive working from home. I don't have to go and spend an hour or more. In my case, it's 4 hours of public transport a day. It makes me a lot more productive. It reduces stress levels, all of those things. Why should I do it if we've proven as a firm and in our relationships with our clients that we can work this way? So that I think is going to shift significantly. And it won't just be the decision of one organization like ours. We are having conversations about should we reduce travel going forward. And I think the answer will be we will, for the simple reason that our clients and our suppliers and our peers will be like us. They won't feel the need to travel as much as we have to in the past.
That's right.
And so I think those types of behaviors will become much more embedded, and we'll see, I think the travel industry will suffer. I don't think leisure travel will suffer too much, because I think you can have a virtual meeting, you can't have a virtual holiday. So in that respect, I think that will probably remain in some way. In terms of how the world will change post-pandemic, I mean, a lot of that has to do with what the prevailing narrative will be. So on the one hand, you've got effectively two schools of thought. You've got one school of thought that says, regardless of the impact on the planet and climate change and all of that, we need to get the economy back on track, whatever it takes. So if that means, building new coal-fired power stations, not that you do that such a short time, but you continue with putting fossil fuels out there and polluting and all of those things, we're going to have to do it because we need the economy back on track. That is, and you hear that narrative in some countries and from some political leaders. I would argue that the prevailing narrative is we need a recovery that is future-proof, and a recovery that therefore takes into account where we were already heading in terms of our economies, and how we can ensure that whatever new money we put into the system goes to those businesses, those technologies, those business models that will enable us to make the transition to a better future. So the Build Back Better piece is exactly that. It's ensuring that we need to recapitalize the entire world pretty much. There's going to be so much new money having to be injected in one form or another, in addition to a lot of cost-saving initiatives. And if anyone's going to invest money going forward, they're going to think really hard about how, where the growth is. So if you just take the energy sector, for instance, those industries that were growing were the renewables and industries, double-digit growth in many cases. That's where the growth is. So that's where you're going to put your money. You're not going to put your money into oil and gas exploration, which you're already seeing is reaching its peak, if it even already has. So I think the big part of the narrative for me is, yes, it's about building back better. It's about investing wisely and intentionally, so that what comes out of this is actually a leapfrogging of this very difficult phase that we would have had to have, from slowing down the economy or parts of the economy in order to build other parts of the economy. Well, the slowing down we've already had. We've done that now. Let's find ways to intelligently invest new funds. And the other thing is, of course, this transition is already well underway. The transition towards low carbon energy is well underway. It's not like we've suddenly got to press a button. The button's already been pressed, it's moving. The cost of renewables are lower, or as low as they have been, as the cost of fossil fuels. In the UK, we're seeing almost every day we're using more renewable energy to power the nation than fossil fuels. All of those things, are pointing in that direction already. Then you add to that the impact on people. People have spent a lot more time at home, less time in cities. They have seen how nature has thrived. They are paying more attention. They're, when you're only exercising, spending an hour outdoors, you're gonna make it count, and you're gonna value what you're seeing, and you're gonna have a different relationship with your own environment. You're gonna have a different relationship as well with the people around you. We are, those of us who are frequent travelers, we've suddenly got to spend months with our families, and suddenly realize how wonderful that is. will we want to go back to those other ways of doing things? I think I personally am I'm an optimist, but I'm a big believer that there will be a positive recovery that comes out of this. But it's a big case of the prevailing narrative, because the danger on the other side is people say, which is kind of the narrative in the US currently, we need to close everything down, we need to block the borders, we need to protect the US industry, we need to stop imports, we can't trust people from other countries because they bring diseases, blah, 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 blah. Yep. And then you have, a complete closing down on everything. Now, I think parts of that will happen anyway. There will be an element of deglobalization. There will be an element of wanting to keep certain industries that we feel are crucial. Take food, take pharma, take energy. You'll want to maintain some level of resilience to future shocks by having, by ensuring that you have within your own nation or within those of your friendly states, take the EU bloc, for instance, the ability to deliver those core services. But that's pretty much where that needs to end. After that, you can still have a globalized world, you can still have lots of partnerships, and we need that to resolve and address some of the challenges that we're facing.
Yeah, I love so much what you said about, yes, we have to recover, but this is our opportunity to also reform.
Yeah,
and we're seeing some examples of that. The Air France, when the French government offered some financial assistance to Air France, it was contingent on meeting some certain climate targets. And that investment with contingencies attached to it, I think, is going to become the norm. And we will be better emerging from this pandemic than we were going into it, for all the reasons you stated.
Yeah.
So we are out of time, but I think I could talk to you for another hour or so. So thank you so much. This has been incredibly interesting. I think Freshfields, as I said at the beginning, is clearly leading by example with respect to what the legal industry and other law firms can and should be doing in collaborating with clients and other third parties to help address some of the world's most pressing problems. And as I always say, if not the professions, then who? And if not now, then when? So thank you so much. And thank you to Buying Legal Counsel for giving us this opportunity to discuss this incredibly important topic. Thank you, Oliver.
Thank you very much. It's been a delight.